Hello and welcome to FTB Sports. This is a special Leeds special for all you Leeds fans out there. We're going to be looking at the Leeds team and Bielsa and asking the question, are Leeds too good to go down? Will Bielsa ball survive? We've got some special guests on today. We've got Crazy Red Mank and we also have Darius 3K. Welcome to both of you. How you doing?
Yeah, good mate. How you doing?
Not bad. Arsenal went out today, didn't they? So kind of arrival out of the FA Cup. You lot got Liverpool tomorrow, so that means one of you lot are going as well. So it could be a good day for Spurs, to be honest.
Could be a very good week for Spurs. Let's look at the the game on Thursday is what I'm looking forward to. I'm not bypassing Wickham, but yeah. Well, like I said, we're not really here to talk about our teams because there's lots and plenty of those forums that we can do. What we're looking at today is Leeds. Obviously, Leeds have come up from the Championship. Fantastic football. They've been playing in the Championship. Started off with a bang in the Premier League. But have things turned a little bit sour? Are they going a little bit south? Are they going to survive this season? These are some questions that we want to ask. As non-Leeds fans, we just want to maybe investigate. We might have some comments coming up to see if Leeds fans agree with us. But just to point out, it's not about us bashing Leeds. We're just trying to ask the question. We want to make sure that, teams who play this good football, there's schools of thought that is it about playing good football or is it about survival? So let's get into this. I'm going to put this first one up here. Will Bielsa ball survive this season? So it's quite well known that Bielsa ball is this open, expansive football. We have the likes of Pochettino, Guardiola, who are almost disciples of Bielsa, 65-year-old manager. I'll ask a question to you, Crazy Red Man. What do you think?
Well, I love the Bielsa ball, if I'm honest, as a neutral. When they come up, I mean, that first game against Liverpool was explosive. And, from then on, you knew what you were going to get. And they carried that on. But I think it hit a point probably about 5 or 6 games ago where it started to not work as much. I think everyone knows now how they play and what to do. I think when we played them, that we just left 3 attackers up top because we knew as soon as we got the ball that they powered everyone forward and we just hit them on the break every time. So from a Leeds point, it's worrying. From a neutral, keep it coming. I'll watch that all day long.
Darius, what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm the same as Crazy Red Mike, to be honest. I love, as a neutral, I absolutely love it. It's sort of like it's like the absolute extreme of the football that I like to watch, because I do like to watch attractive football, but I'm a football fan, and I can see when certain systems and certain styles of play don't necessarily work all the time. And I think that the reason that Poch and Guardiola have made such a success out of obviously using Bielsa's tactics and adapting them is because they've adapted them. So it kind of seems like Bielsa's tactics are a literal blueprint of what you can do. And it seems like the managers that have taken parts of Bielsa's tactics and incorporated them into their own styles have kind of done better than Bielsa, because Bielsa hasn't actually don't think he's won a major trophy since he's managed. I think he won a silver medal for Chile in the Olympics, but there's no evidence to suggest that what Bielsa's doing is actually successful. It's attractive and it's fun to watch, but there's no evidence to suggest that it's successful. So I think on the basis of this season, I think, he will survive purely because if you look at the teams below him, I just don't think they're near the quality that the Premier League requires to stay up necessarily. I think Bielsa has players who maybe aren't Premier League quality, but he has a system that allows them to create chances so they can potentially score, or they try to score more goals in the team. That seems like their tactic. But I think they'll survive on the basis that teams below them are just not as good and can't create as many chances as them. So if you can't score goals, there's no chance of you winning games and picking up points, really. So
okay. But is it a case of him being a step ahead of Leeds, maybe? Because if he was a top 6 manager, we'll all be sat here praising him because they'd probably be in the top 3 at the moment.
You could say that.
Yeah.
But then I think you could also suggest, like, imagine he was at Manchester United with the defense that you've got, and it's like if the defense aren't extremely well drilled and maybe don't. For example, look at Man City. If you have a centre back like Ruben Diaz, it kind of seems like Ruben Diaz can just defend regardless of the system that he plays in because he's just a good defender. So if you've got a defender like that in your team, you might be able to play a system like Bielsa. But if you've got a defense sort of that's not already great, and then you're telling them to push 15, 20 yards maybe higher up the pitch, they might be exposed a little bit more. That's the only thing I could suggest. And while your attacking team and your attacking players are much more talented and might be able to score even more goals, so you kind of don't have to worry about that. You're gonna look at Man U fans and think, would you want to be put through that stress of potentially winning 4-0 one game and then losing 4-0 the next? And I don't think Man United fans would really want to go through that stress necessarily. Or big clubs in general, to be fair.
So before I get into a bit of stats on Leeds, just a few things. Football's quite an easy game to kind of look at. It's about quality of players. It's about how you manage a team, how you put together a formation, the tactics you apply in a game. So for me, when Sheffield United came up last season, they had a way of playing, a bit of a strategy, which wasn't really worked out by any of the top teams, hence the reason why Sheffield United survived. But as you can see, this season, totally different ball game. They're struggling. Leeds have come up with a very much a way of playing, and it's very attacking. The problem I see for Leeds is they don't seem to change that. And we'll probably get onto that a little bit later. But the way they're going, the last 4 matches that they've had, and I'll just read out the results. So they lost 1-0 at home to Brighton in the Premier League. They lost 3-0 away to Crawley in the FA Cup, albeit a changed team. They lost 3-0 away to Spurs in the Prem. They're now 12th, 23 points, scored 30, but conceded 34. And we all know we've seen some results when they've won 4-0, lost 5, whatever it is. My main point about them is in all of those games that I've watched them play, they haven't changed. They just played in the same way. So this kind of leads me on to my next question then for you guys. Why won't Leeds change their approach? Because if they continue playing the way they do with a strategy that they have, man-to-man marking, managers like Jose Mourinho just work that one out. All you need to do is create a lot of space. If you've got more quality than they do, and what happens with Leeds as well, their running stats have suddenly started to drop, whereas at the beginning of the season, they're running all over the place, could press. That cannot be done for a whole season. I don't care who you are. So once a manager such as Jose, such as the big top managers, not even so much the top managers, but any manager that watches and studies Leeds will see they haven't got a different blueprint. There is no plan B. There certainly is no plan C. So why is it do you think Leeds won't change their approach? I'll go to you first on that one, Darius.
I think it's just because Bielsa doesn't want to. I mean, would you expect Jose to... No, Jose's kind of evolved his style with Tottenham recently, but would you expect Jose to suddenly do what Bielsa's doing or play like how Guardiola's playing? You kind of wouldn't. I mean, it's taken a lot of pressure for Jose to kind of take the handbrakes off Tottenham, and even then, we still play very, very defensive football. We still seem to want to hold on to a victory rather than get a surefire victory and go for 3 or 4 goals. So I think it's just the man that Bielsa is. He's not going to change his ways. And I think Leeds fans...
Wouldn't you say to that, though, that taking Jose as the example, doesn't Jose change his tactics and strategy from game to game, team to team?
Yeah, a lot more.
Set up a certain way away from home, particularly against stronger teams. And in the last few games, as we've talked about and seen, he's maybe adopted a bit more of an attacking approach and maybe staying on the front foot a bit more. Leeds just seem to be on the front foot all the time, 100 miles an hour. And now that miles per hour is suddenly going down to 95, 90, 85. It's not consistently staying at that level, which I think is very difficult to do.
It is, and it comes with the system that you play. When you're constantly, and you hear from the players and training that the drills that Bielsa has them doing, they're all targeted towards your stamina and your physical endurance. It's if you can run for at least 85 minutes in a Bielsa team, you're doing a job for him. And I think that teams and managers and the fans and everyone has realized he's not going to change. So you can kind of predict a few of the games that Leeds play now. And I think that's the problem that Leeds are going to have in the Premier League, because they're not the best team and not one of the best teams. So in the Championship, where they could kind of outrun teams, outplay teams, like suffocate teams almost, kind of what Man City do. They're not able to do that in the Premier League. And it's going to become an issue, I think, not this season, because the madness of this league is going to save them. I think they are good enough. They create enough chances to score enough goals, to win enough games, to get enough points to survive. But that second season, if they don't improve defensively and they don't build on what they're doing now, I can see more and more teams kind of just deploying a low block and catching them on the counter. Because if Crawley can do it, and I know, yeah, we said that they had a different team, but at the end of the day, the players that fill those positions in Leeds are all, they're not all unique, should I say? Like they all fill a role. They all do a good job. I think Calvin Phillips, Jack Harrison, there's a couple of players that have specific roles. Luke Ayling has a specific role, but a lot of the other players you could replace them with other players in the Premier League or other players around the world, and they wouldn't be that much different. I think Leeds are going to get found out in that system. And I think unless they improve the quality of the players in the system, teams will just drop off and they will just suss them out. And I don't think it'll be as bad as Sheffield this season, but it could get to the point where they'll be scrapping next season because it would just be too easy for teams to play against them. Tottenham, I know for a fact, whenever we play Leeds or when we play Leeds next, I know it'll be the exact same thing. And if we play the same way, I don't see how Leeds beat us in 10, 15 games. Do you know what I mean? If we played the same game 10 times, couldn't see Leeds beating us.
Crazy Red Man, if you was a Leeds supporter, would this be the type of football, or certainly would you as a fan be happy with the way your team's playing, given the fact that you're possibly, not getting the same sort of results as you were in the early part of the season? Would you still be okay?
Probably as a Leeds fan being in the Championship for 16 years, I'd probably be expecting to come up and play, be a bit more defensive in the first season, just to, keep your Premier League status. I don't really think that people were expecting Leeds to play that way when they first come up.
I certainly wasn't.
No.
Did you think they were going to adapt? I was expecting them to carry on. I really was. I know. I just saw the way that they played because I didn't watch them the season before, but the season that they won the Championship, they just didn't change, and I just didn't see. Yeah. I don't see it was after the City game when I saw them play against City like that. Was it City or Liverpool their first game? Liverpool was their first game. Sorry, Liverpool their first game, and they lost 4-3. If they're doing that against Liverpool, they were doing that against everyone. From when I saw that game, I knew that they wasn't going to change.
Yeah, I think that's the result though, isn't it? That shocked everyone, and I that really caught me off guard a little bit. But I thought that it was to do with the start of the weird season. It was the first official season of no fans and COVID and everything like that. So,
and I think you've just touched on that point, Adam. The fact that they've got no fans. If you had 40,000 Leeds supporters, and they're very, very good supported club, they've got a really good fan base, and their fans do make a lot of noise going up to Ellen Road and all the rest of that. I would expect probably getting 5 or 10% more out of these players at this stage if they're at home in their home matches. So yeah, that might be a difference maker. But because of that, do you not think they need to adapt their approach when they're away from home, playing certain teams, the likes of Man United, City, Liverpool, Everton, Chelsea, Leicester City, all teams which are considered better than them on paper? I know they've not, it's almost using that phrase, not showing any respect to them, but surely you have to.
Yeah, I think they have to now, given their last 4 or 5 games. I don't think they've scored a goal in 4 games, have they?
No.
Yeah, they haven't scored a goal since the game before Spurs. I know that. So I think the second half of the season now, they've hit the halfway point. I think they have to think about realistically where they are going to finish now, because even though there's poorer teams in the division, they probably won't go down, but other teams are starting to creep up now. Like Burnley are starting to put a couple wins together against big teams as well.
And the way that they're playing as well, you can see that it's a polar opposite of Leeds. So
just looking at the table here, you've got Leeds, as I said, on 23 points in 12th. There's quite a few teams in between them: Crystal Palace, Wolves, Burnley, Newcastle, Brighton. So in terms of the drop zone, it's Fulham on 12 points in 18th. So they've got 11 points to play with there. That's quite a few points to kind of, find themselves in that drop zone. They'd really have to go on a real big run of losses. But as we've seen in the division, it doesn't take a lot for that to happen. So I'm just going to ask another question here. What's gone wrong, if anything? If you guys think that this way of playing isn't gone wrong, or do you think it should be success in terms of how they play as opposed to just results?
Well, given since the Man United game, I've had it in the back of my head whether the players have almost bought in to the speculation that everyone knows how they play now, and they're they're easy to play against, and whether that's had a knock-on effect going forward. Because since that game, they haven't scored a goal. And if they're playing explosive attacking football, not scoring, that's an issue.
They had a 5-0 win against West Brom. Sorry, they had a 5-0 win against West Brom.
Sorry,
December 29th. Yeah. Sorry,
but I mean, West Brom, they had a
West Brom,
bad patch. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if that's got into the back of the players' minds as well. Whether they saw that Bielsa interview after the game at Old Trafford when he said that he wasn't going to change his style of play, and whether they thought, "Oh, are we screwed here?" Or,
Well, I say what was said after the Brighton game when they lost 1-0, and that said that was a fourth loss on the trot without scoring. Bielsa actually came out and said he was worried by the recent performances. So now there's a bit of a sea change, although he was very gung-ho saying, I'm not changing my style of play. I'm not changing this. This is how we play. He is actually worried by the performances, which tells me I don't believe he can continue playing that way against certain teams. Now, don't get me wrong. If you come up against teams where, they might be attacking as well, that might play into their hands because, it's we attack, they attack. Do they have enough goals in them? Their top scorer is Patrick Bamford with 10. But then there's a big drop off to the next scorer, which I think is Klitsch on 3 goals. So
yeah, and Jack
they're
Harrison.
They're kind of relying on one person to score goals. That is never really a good recipe for a team that's relying on scoring more than the opposition. I just go back to teams like the Newcastle of the old days where they're outscoring teams 4-3 and all the rest of it. Once your goal scorer stops, if you've only got one, you're in problems. A lot of the teams now, you look at the likes of Spurs, you look at the likes of United, Chelsea, they've got goal scorers throughout the team. If one person doesn't score, you would hope that somebody else would. If Patrick Bamford doesn't score, they might be struggling for goals. Do they need something else?
I think they do, but it's who are they going to get? Like in January, I don't necessarily think Leeds can buy enough players of quality to kind of put them in a position where they'll be stable in the league, playing the style of play that they do. I think Bielsa's got these players to buy into what they're doing. They're not in a situation where they're going to go down. I don't think it's bad. I don't think that they will go down, but you have to kind of look at Leeds and think, what are you trying to get out of this season? What do you want to achieve? If you're a Leeds fan, are you trying to survive? Are you trying to play attractive football? Are you trying to I don't know. I'd like to know from Leeds fans what this season is meant to entail for them, because if you're trying to push up the league and try and get a European spot, then you're gonna have to buy players of quality to compete with the teams around you. But if you're trying to maintain your Champions League spot, potentially go on a decent cup run, I think the players that they've got and the manager they've got, it's good. It can work. And I don't necessarily think things have gone wrong. I think, like you said, I just think Bielsa needs to kind of take a step back, realize that he's not in the Championship anymore. He's in the Premier League. He's facing teams who just have better players than him. And it might be a case where teams with better players who play a system that will help play against Leeds will just win. Crystal Palace, if Roy Hodgson sets out his team the way Roy Hodgson sets out his teams, and they counter-attack Leeds, they look like a better team, in my opinion, because they look like they can score and they look like they can defend Leeds. I don't know what Leeds want to do this season, so I can't say if it's gone wrong, because if Leeds fans said, yeah, we're going to come up and finish 8th, then yeah, it's kind of gone wrong. But if Leeds fans said, yeah, we're going to come up and I just want to survive, then it's going all right, in my opinion. I think it's just Bielsa just needs to be a little bit smarter with the big teams, like he said, when he's going away from home, realizing maybe you can't just go gung-ho. And they actually probably would pick up a few points. Draws actually might be helpful for Leeds. And those draws might turn into wins if they can get a little bit of defensive stability or some defensive shape, because there's none at the moment.
Do you think there's anything that's gone wrong, Crazy Red Man?
Other than what I said a minute ago with the players, maybe I think the fans' opinion might have changed slightly as well, given the fact that they haven't scored any goals. But the one weird one was that Rodrigo, he hasn't started much recently, has he?
No, he's found it hard to settle in, hasn't he?
Yeah, but when he comes on, he seems quite explosive, seems quite attacking, and always creates something, gets a goal every now and again. I quite like him, but I don't know whether what's gone on there, whether his fitness isn't up to scratch for that attacking team, or
they spent, how much did they spend on that Rodrigo?
29 million from Valencia.
Yeah, just got it 27. So it's somewhere between 27, 29 million. In total, in the summer, Leeds were just shy of £100 million spent on the transfer. So a team like Leeds, who've come up from the Championship, spending that type of money suggests to me that they're not spending that money to go back down the next season. They're spending to stay up. And this is why the question was asked is, if they don't, and we'll get to them in a little bit, but if they don't, that's £100 million investment in a team where you're probably going to have some of these players on pretty decent wages. Given the circumstances, the COVID seasons that we're going to be having, the financial tightness it's going to be around in the Premier League, it's going to be difficult to kind of financially buy your way out of these things. You've got big teams like Chelsea who are spending big money. You've got the likes of United who spend big money. But even those sort of teams now are kind of a bit wary about the future. I'll go on to this then. Are they too good to go down?
Yes, but next season that might change, I think. This
Why
season
are they too good? Oh, I'll add to that. You both said they're too good to go down. In my opinion, they're not, but I'm not going to answer the next part. You guys can. Crazy Red Mac, why are they too good? Or why are they not bad enough to go down? Or in your opinion, why are they too good to stay up?
Well, to put it simply, there's too many teams in the division that are worse than them at the moment. You've got Sheffield United who can't buy a win at the moment. West Brom that I don't think they've really got the players to work under Allardyce's formation. And Fulham that are looking on the up, to be fair. Fulham, they're improving. Burnley are improving. But I think that thing is, as much as we're talking about they're being hit on the break and things like that, they're losing games. They will find the net again. They will be beating teams teams like Crystal Palace and people like that. They will be picking up wins. So I think they got a lot of quality in there. I'm still reserved on Bamford though. I'm not sure on him because I've seen him play for a few clubs now, and every time they come up to the Premier League, he never seems to start in other clubs. So it's the first time I've seen him start consistently in the Premier League. Whether he needs to play in a different formation with another striker rather than him being the main man.
Well, Bamford's got 10 goals in 18 games. That's pretty decent for someone who's come up from the Championship. He was top of the scoring charts, the early part of the season. The top scorer in the league at the moment is Salah with 13. So if you're on a balance of goals scored from your striker, your lone striker, 10 goals is a pretty decent return. I'd say Kane's on 12, Son's on 12, so 10 goals is nothing to be sniffed at. The problem I've got with it is that your next best scorer, as we've talked about, has only got 3. And I think there's somebody else who's on 3 and then it goes to 2. There isn't many players there that are going to score you a lot of goals if Bamford was to get injured. Now, you're right in what you're saying. This Rodrigo, why is he not playing? They spent near enough £30 million on him. Should he be in the squad? Sorry, not the squad, in the team playing? Should he be alongside Bamford? Should they change their style of play in terms of a formation? These are questions that I want to be answered, because if they continue down this road, they probably will survive. And I think you're quite right. They will survive. I don't think they're too good not to go down, but I think, as you guys have probably rightly alluded to, there's teams in the division that are worse than them. But surely for a team that spent £100 million on the come up, they want to finish a bit higher than what? 17th, 16th, 15th, would you not say?
Again, I think with Rodrigo and signings with Leeds, I think because Bielsa's system is so intricate and it's so precise, it requires a lot of stamina and physical endurance. I think that it takes a lot for players to assimilate and get used to those tactics, which is why you don't really see a player slide into a Bielsa team quite so quickly. But I do think that it will come good with Rodrigo. I think he's a good enough player quality-wise to bring something for Leeds. I think my reason for Leeds not having an issue going down necessarily this season is because chance creation. If you look at chance creation, if you can create enough chances, you're more likely to score. When I look at Newcastle and I watch Newcastle play, I get worried for Newcastle, and they are slowly falling down now, Newcastle, because they don't create chances. They rely on defending, and it's only now that Brucey played completely different style against Arsenal, and he still lost 3-0. Created more chances, but they didn't really create any good chances, and they lost 3-0. Same with Crystal Palace, and same with Wolves as well at the moment. I know Wolves are a good team, so I don't think again they will go down. But these teams that I worry more about are the teams that aren't creating any chances. So when Leeds have players who can slip a ball in, and players like Jack Harrison who can score a great world-class strike from outside the box, I have a lot more promise for them for staying up, because I know that there could be a goal that can come out of nowhere for Leeds, as opposed to Newcastle, where it seems like I don't know where the goals come from with Newcastle. So I think you can look at that as a good thing. I think there are quite a few players on 3 goals and 2 goals for Leeds. So while they haven't got out-and-out goal scorers like Patrick Bamford, they do have players that contribute, and they have scored 30 goals this season, which is quite a lot of goals. I know that it's not the most, and they were the top goal scorers at one point, but 30 goals is a lot of goals. So I think they will be fine. I think it's just they have to be wary about next season, because they could have a similar story and outcome to Sheffield United.
You're very right in what you said about the goals. Sorry, Crazy Red. I'm just going to just add this so then you can take the point on. You're right about the goals. They've scored 30, which is not too bad. The leading goal scorers in the division at the moment is Liverpool on 37. So yeah, you can obviously see that they've done very well in terms of goal scoring. But what's worrying for me is the fact that they've conceded 34. Now, the only team below them in terms of goals conceded,
West Brom,
43. They've taken some hammerings this season. Now, if you combine that where you're not scoring, Sam Allardyce has always been very, very clear. If the team don't score against us, we can't lose a game, which is right, obviously. But you also then need to nick a goal here and there to win that. Leeds have had 7 clean sheets. Now, 7 clean sheets on the face of it isn't too bad, but I'm sure a lot of those earlier clean sheets, a lot of those clean sheets came in the earlier part of the season. They haven't kept a clean sheet in the last 4 games. I know they had the 5-0 against West Brom, but before that, it still wasn't clean sheets. If the goals start drying up, if you get an injury to let's say Bamford, let's say Rodrigo doesn't find his form, and then you're still playing the same expansive football, teams are scoring against you, you could be in for a bit of a shock. And although you're 12 points above that relegation zone, a couple of draws, 2 losses, Fulham does start to push on. Teams below you it can start to get a little bit sticky. And my point is, I don't think they would spend 100 million and be happy to be finishing 16th, 17th. Considering when they came up, a lot of the reports were Leeds will be challenging for a top 6 place. What's your thoughts on that, Crazy man?
Wow, I don't think they're ever going to challenge top 6, were they? I think everyone saw how explosive they were and jumped the gun on it a little bit. It's what we do, isn't it, as English fans? But yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit stuck on this one. It's with Leeds. Do you think the summer is probably their most important part of the season for them, to get that balance of that midfield, the transition from defence to attack, and get that right, and sort of try and change their style and put tactical changes in there? Yeah,
I'll answer this first bit and then I'll let Darius answer. So for me, what I've seen with Leeds is they do this man-to-man marking. So effectively, every player has got a prescribed man at the start of the game. That's your man. Where he goes, you go. And what that allows you to do is, as soon as a player gets the ball, you're going to get as close as you can and press that and if you win the ball, then it's all flooding in.
Yeah.
Most teams don't really play very high and wide. Teams like Manchester City do. Teams like Liverpool do. Who else would play high and wide? There's teams that will create a lot of space. Brighton, for instance, create a lot of space on the pitch. Because they've got this man-to-man tactic, all you have to do, and I'm just going from a coaching perspective, is if you control possession and you get your players out into space and you can control the ball by keeping good possession, all you need to do is find a spare man. One pass could go into a player and then you're in, and you're in behind them. So their midfielders are easy to bypass in that sense if you create the space in midfield. And then you're onto their defense. And then because they've got their fullbacks, they're very attacking their fullbacks. you sometimes find, I've seen situations in the Man United game and in the Spurs game, they were 3-on-2 against their defense. Now, that's just not going to be successful.
You only see that in the 96th minute when a team's chasing, don't you? Really and truly.
Exactly. Most times you see that when teams are chasing a game. Leeds do this from minute 0, and that's my worry for them. Can you continue to play the same way? If a team knows exactly how you're going to play, and you know almost like the personnel, obviously all teams now have got great scouting, they've got good networks to know exactly, they've got video analysis, they can see everything, different camera angles. What player does that? If your stats start to go down when you're running, it's easier then to pick holes in that way of playing. That's my point about them with this style of play. So yeah, they might survive. Too good to go down. I think they're going to have to adapt. If they do survive, I think they're going to really have to adapt the way they play next season.
I think you have to also look when I watch Leeds, I notice a lot of the time that Leeds are kind of culprits of their own mistakes as well. The amount of times I see, and I will say, Isla Melier, their goalkeeper, I think he has probably the worst job out of everybody in that Leeds team because he's actually a good goalkeeper, and I will stick by that. But he's made to look so much worse because of the defense and because of the way they play. He actually makes a lot of saves, and he actually keeps scores quite lower than Leeds can keep it as much as they can. But when I look at that Leeds team, they are so fixated on passing from the back. They'll make a lot of mistakes, and sometimes those passes won't always go to the player, and sometimes it will create a chance for the opposing team. So sometimes Ayling will just completely play a ball to a striker, and it will just turn the whole defense around. And I think eliminating those issues and those mistakes as well can shore up a defense quite a lot, because when your manager kind of doesn't fault you for making those errors and you continually make those errors and you're conceding from them, there's no air for improvement. There's no area to kind of say, right, we need to stop doing that. If your manager's not telling you to stop doing it, then I don't think the players are going to stop doing it. So I think we're all saying the same thing. I basically think that Leeds, the system works, but it just needs to be tweaked defensively for teams that are just clearly better than them in quality and tactically. When managers have Bielsa's number tactically, I think he just has to kind of put his hands up and say, I do think I have to change my ways, because if not, I guarantee you, like I said, if Tottenham and Manchester and Leeds were to play 10 games, I probably could predict the outcome of all those 10 games.
I'd love to play them every week. I'd love to play them every week. Every week, I'd love to play Leeds. What about yourself, Crazy Bank? What would you, as a Man United supporter, wouldn't you love to be playing that Leeds team on a regular basis, or teams like Leeds, should we say?
Oh, it'd be a dream every week. I mean,
so good.
You could. Yeah, I mean, some of the players get a bit of confidence. Get Maguire in the box on some corners, getting some goals, getting some confidence. But no. Oh, seriously, the style, it'd just be easy to play against, because the thing is, Bielsa, he's shown that he's not changing at the moment, and we'd just say, right, defense, you just sit here. We just keep one person back from midfield. The rest of you go and have a field day, and it would be like that.
So I'll put the last one up now. This is going to be the last interesting part of the discussion. Does Bielsa go if they get relegated? This is the big if, and we've all said that we don't expect them to go down, but there's always a question to be asked if they do. And I'll just add this to the party before we go on to this question, and I'll ask Crazy Red Mank first. Interestingly, I think Bielsa's contract runs out June 2021, so this year. I've not heard that he's signed a new contract, obviously not at the moment, and I don't know whether they're waiting till the end of the season to make any decisions, whether he's waiting till the end of the season or how they do his contracts. He signed a 3-year contract, and it could be just a rolling thing, so there might not be anything to worry about. But again, depending on where they finish this season, would Bielsa be staying?
Yeah, it's interesting actually, because last time he signed his contract, that he was on an iron about whether he was actually staying, wasn't he?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, if I remember rightly. I think if they go down, he's definitely leaving. But the people at the club seem to love him, no matter what, from the owners down to the fans. So I think that it wouldn't be the club push them out. I think he'd be leaving on his own terms.
Okay.
But at the moment, I can't see them going down. So I'd probably say he's probably safe where he is.
So do you think he will sign a new contract? Because like I said, at the moment, it's not. There's probably, I would say there'll be a lot of suitors worldwide that would take someone like Bielsa. If he had let's say he had that same style of football, but he had maybe the Chelsea squad, would he get a lot more success with that style of football with those players, because they're obviously better quality, very attack-minded, very much attacking players? Would that suit? And those are the sort of things. I think what holds him back potentially, and it's certainly held a lot of managers back from really progressing, is the fact that he doesn't speak English. Now that again, it shouldn't make a difference, but it does. Poch, when he came to Spurs, didn't speak English, although he could speak English. He had a translator.
He was so sneaky, wasn't he? Because we knew he could speak English, but he just chose not to speak English.
He chose not to. Yeah. I don't think Bielsa's in that same boat, but that sort of getting the message across to players who are, I don't know how that works in training, whether or not sometimes messages get diluted with the translation sort of thing. Would he be suited going to somewhere like Spain, or somewhere where they speak Spanish as the first language, or would it be just that he's just that good a coach that he can just get away with a translator on the pitch and just be able to coach that? It's fascinating to me how that actually works in reality. But yeah. What's your thoughts on another team possibly coming in for him if he doesn't sign a contract, and there's talks about, is he going to stay?
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be, I think at the end of the season when they discuss the new contract, I think it would have to be a lot of promises from the club regarding new players coming in, money available to go and spend. Because like you say, if you had if Chelsea are going to sack Frank Lampard and Chelsea come in, I don't think he's going to say no to it. He's got no obligation to stay at Leeds if Chelsea come in, and Chelsea will give him funds. They'll give him whatever he wants, and we know Chelsea will do that for anyone. So,
do you think Darius then? Sorry, Chris.
No, it's fine.
Do you think Darius then that maybe this is almost like a bit of a no-lose situation for Bielsa? The fact that he's only got potentially 5 months left on his contract. If they go down or if they finish poorly, he could just say, I've done all I can do. I'm free, everybody. Listen, I'm here. Someone like Chelsea could come in for him. I'm just using Chelsea as an example because of the attacking players. Or do you think there's a real project there, given that he has spent 100 million, as I've said, and there's a long-term vision and plan for him to be at Leeds?
In Leeds, in the city of Leeds, and I've spoke to people who live in Leeds. I spoke to Leeds fans. Bielsa is a literal god. There's streets named after him. There's murals. The whole city love him. So I think if the club were to sack him, it wouldn't come out very good to the fans. I don't think they'd be very happy with that. And I think also, if you look at Leeds and the situation they've been in, they were out of the Premier League for 16 years. He's brought them back. He's brought them back playing this great football. He is an iconic manager, in my opinion. He's influenced possibly the greatest manager of this generation. Like I said, people can talk about Pep and how he plays. If Bielsa's influenced Pep and Pep's brought this style in, and Pep's influenced, I think, a whole 5 years of football. I think a lot of people have tried to imitate Pep's style. I think Bielsa has credibility, and I think he will leave on his, like you said, Crazy Red, he will leave on his demand. He will not be sacked by the club. I think even if he goes down, the club will say, you can bring us back up. We know you can bring us back up. And I think Bielsa isn't going to get
Shouldn't they be looking for more than that? Now, I'm just going to, at the point, Bielsa's 65. Now, you've said all these other managers have lauded him and they've praised him, they're his disciples and all the rest of it. But he's 65. I don't know about his CV in terms of his silverware, but I don't think it's a massive
no major trophies. Silverware. I think it's only the gold medal, the silver medal.
No major trophies. 65 years of age. At 65, he does well to be on his knees for that long. I've seen him just in that crouching position. I can't even do that for 10 minutes, let alone bloody 90. So a 65-year-old man, he's not, I wouldn't say he's got the majority of his time ahead of him. There could only be one major team left for him to go. So if a big offer came in from a Chelsea, we're going to keep using that Chelsea example. If a team like Chelsea came in, you're 65 years old, this could be your last big job to really stamp your mark as someone who can win, because at the end of the day, it's about getting some sort of success. Success can come in different forms. Yes, playing great football, but ultimately, when you sit down at the end of as your career as a footballer, as a manager, you want to be able to have something tangible to say, well, I've done that and I've won that. He hasn't quite got that. So I don't know. I'm just putting that out there as
I just think it's the whole with Leeds and him bringing Leeds up and really in that difference, because if you take Bielsa out of Leeds and you look at the Leeds squad and you put a manager, I don't know, like even Scott Parker, Sam Allardyce, one of these managers in, do you think that they get as much out of those players as Bielsa does?
Do you want to answer that, Crazy?
It's a difficult one.
I think Leeds are in the relegation battle very, very easily if they don't have Bielsa. I don't think those players are good enough.
I think you got to weigh it up, and he probably has tried things since he's been at Leeds. He's probably tried the more sat back approach and tried the attacking approach, tried different things, and this is probably the system he found is most effective, especially in the Championship, because you can probably get away with it a bit more than in the Premier League. Because in the Premier League, if you break 3 against 2, 9 times out of 10, you're going to concede. So yeah, I do think that he will get away with it, but they probably do have to change that.
They have to change next season. They have to be different. They have to.
And the thing is, from a coaching perspective, to coach defensive type football is easier than attacking, because attacking football is very fluid. It all depends on, players
Quality
being
player,
in space, blah, blah, blah. But as a defensive shape, a defensive structure, it's quite consistent, easy to coach. Hence the reason why you've got the likes of Sam Allardyce. They come in, they get a very defensive structure behind them, so they can keep more clean sheets. They can be harder to break down. I'm just thinking to myself, why doesn't he kind of couple that with the attacking style that he's got? Because that's so hard to coach, but they seem to have that in abundance. It's just the fact that I personally don't believe they've got enough quality to really be sustainable as a top 6, top 8, top 4 team. I don't think they've got enough quality in there. They certainly got a way of playing that attacking wise. It's great on the eye. And if you had a little bit more defensive solidity behind you, it could be very successful. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Is that going to be something that he's going to look at this halftime report and then think, yeah, we need to do something else? Because I think the defensive side could be coached fairly easy.
I just think it's him as a person as well. I think Bielsa is one of those guys who he wants to prove a point and kind of say, no, I'm going to prove that my way works. And it might take him to have some real egg on his face and take a real punishment, and maybe even flirt with relegation for him to kind of say, okay, look, it can't work in the Premier League, because I don't see Bielsa changing. I've seen him lose 4 or 5s and he's still not doing any. The Man U game was the one for me. It was a Man U game for me. It was when I watched that Man U game and they were losing. Were they losing 6-1 at one point? I thought, was it 6-1 at one point?
I thought it was going to be 10.
Yeah.
I thought they were.
I genuinely, I was just like, it's insane. It is insane, and it can't work against teams like that. But I do credit them, and they still did create chances, regardless of losing 6-2. So there's a blueprint. I just think that they need to build on it. That, like, what he's doing now isn't the complete and finished article. He needs to build on it. And like you said, defensive shape and quality and structure isn't a difficult place to build on. And I'd love to see what that Leeds team can do if they have a little bit more strength in the back. I think they could actually be quite a decent team, really and truly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get you guys have the last word on this before we wrap it up. I'll go to you first, Crazy Red Man. Obviously, I know you enjoy how they play. Any last thoughts on Leeds before we finish the show?
Yeah, just obviously, I don't think they're going to go down. I think they probably need to tweak their team for the second half of the season. Maybe January transfer market is where they need to invest. Get through to the end of the season, then they've really got to find that balance between midfield and attack, midfield defence. If they can shore up that defence and make it a bit more solid, then I think they'd be a top 10 team in the Premier League if they just get that right. But no, obviously Bielsa, I think he's gonna stay if they stay up, as long as no big dogs coming for him. And then I think they'll build on. I think they've got a base they can build on. I just don't want to see him as another team like Villa and Fulham a couple of years ago, spent 100 million, come up, straight back down.
Yeah.
And then they get stuck in that cycle then. Yeah.
Darius, what's your thoughts? Last thoughts?
I think as neutrals, we shouldn't expect him to change. I think we all can see the issues with the system. I think there could be tweaks that he could make. I don't think he's going to make them. As a Leeds fan, I'd be okay. I'd be happy about this season. It's going fine. They're going to survive, I think. But going into next season, you have to look at every single team around you and think they're going to know what you're doing now. And if those teams change the way they play to suit them against you, it's gonna get worse. The only thing that's gonna happen to Leeds is they're gonna go down. They're not gonna go up if they don't adapt. If you don't adapt, you're not gonna make any progress unless you're winning. Do you know what I mean? And they're not winning at the moment. So if you keep doing the same thing and you're not winning, there's only one way you're gonna go, and that's down. And I really don't want to see that happen to Leeds, because I think teams like Leeds and teams like Burnley, who are kind of polar opposites of styles of play, and they do bring a variety of football to the Premier League, and I think that we need that. And I think Leeds have brought completely different way of playing. As insane and crazy as it is, it's a great place. It's great to have in the Premier League. And I think as a Leeds fan and Leeds in general, they should tweak it. But as a neutral, I'm kind of happy seeing them do this. It does bring a different style of play to teams, and watching Leeds play week in, week out is entertaining. So hats off to them for that.
Entertainment is great. I'm glad I'm not a Leeds fan. I'll be honest with you. I look at people like, teams like Norwich and then Villa. So Norwich last year, they tried to do it all. They tried to play the great way. What's his name?
Daniel Farke.
I always get his name wrong. He was very much this type of manager. Got his principles, got his ways of playing. They went down. Now they're looking like they're probably going to come up because they're top of the division at the moment. Aston Villa were another team, very, very close to the mark, but survived. They had a lot of attacking players. Now, if you look what Villa have done this season, what Dean Smith has done, he's now gone a lot more defensive, but still kept his attacking intent. Villa have got one of the better defensive records in the league. And now you can see what's happened with Villa. They look like a real good team. They've got the balance right because they've got the likes of Grealish, they've got the likes of Ollie Watkins, they've got, McGinn's in there. They've got some really good, talented players. So, I look at them as being what I think Leeds should look at as almost like a benchmark as what you can do if you have the attacking intent. Add some more quality. Now, you're not going to just pick up Jack Grealish's like that because he's a special talent in itself. But you can get a lot of talented players playing a good style of football, but balance that up with a real defensive-minded philosophy at times. Not all the time, but get the balance right. So that's how I look at Leeds. I look at Aston Villa as being that sort of benchmark for them if they can survive. And I think they will, as we've all talked about.
Can I ask you one quick question before that?
Sure.
Position. Where do you think Leeds are going to finish at the end of this season?
If you're asking me, I think they'll finish lower half of the division. I think they'll probably, I'm just going to have a look at the table again here because it will give me an idea just looking and seeing what other teams are kind of doing. As I said, I don't think they're going to finish top half. I think their running has dropped off. I don't think you can suddenly just turn that back on. Arsenal are above them. Aston Villa are above them. West Ham are above them. Southampton, Chelsea, Tottenham, Everton. Then you're going into the top 5. I don't see them finishing above any of them teams, if you ask me. I can see Crystal Palace, potentially Wolves, maybe improving a little bit. So I think they'll finish 14th, 15th.
Yeah, I had 15th.
Crazy Red Mac, where are you thinking they're finishing?
Yeah, I think the highest they're going to finish is 14th. Yeah. Like you say, they'll probably get ahead of teams like Palace and Wolves, but they'll get ahead of teams like Newcastle. I think Newcastle could be lucky to actually stay up this season, if I'm honest.
Bad. And that's what I mean. Like, at least Leeds can create chances and potentially score goals. Newcastle just don't look like they can do anything. And
there's such comparable teams in terms of their fan bases. Newcastle up in the northeast, their fan base is it's phenomenal. And Leeds are very similar. And they want to see attractive football. They want to see their teams play fantastic, score goals every week, but they also want to be in this major division. And Leeds, having been out of it for 16 years, they don't want to go back down, particularly for the fact that their fans haven't even seen them play, which is awful for them. So, they're 16 years away, and obviously 2020's brought whatever it's brought, and it's not nice for them. So I don't want to see them go down just for that reason. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next season for me. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We're going to wrap this up. Thank you all for watching. This has been a special on Leeds, whether or not they survive this season. This has been FTB Sports. I'm thanking my guests, Crazy Red Mank and Darius 3K. We've got a number of shows coming up. We've got some preview shows on Man United games, Spurs games. Look out for our transfer specials. We are trying to do as much, so we need the support from all you guys. So like, subscribe, share, comment, all the rest of it. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much, Darius. Thank you very much, Crazy Mank, and we'll see you again soon.